Hi again. This time it's number 8 of the 12 in the Contra Calvinism series. And this time we're going to talk about another big gaffe in Calvinism. It's about Romans 9. That's one of their favorite passages. Now in hermeneutics is the science of finding out, it's art more than science, of finding out what the Bible actually says, and really in the larger sense it's what's finding out what any ancient text says. You have to interpret, or you have to find out what the words actually mean in the eyes of the writer when the writer is writing, which means you have to know a whole lot of cultural information. It's called isagogics. You have to know a whole lot of cultural information that is applicable to the time of writing, so that when you read the words, you understand the context of that time. And of course, there's the context of the whole body of writing. There's the context of the immediate verses or words around the writing. And you use all of that together to find out what actually the text means. Now that's what they're supposed to do and in Bible. So when you take a look at Romans 9, the first thing you have to do is figure out, well, what's the book of Romans about? Then what was the theme that got set up at the beginning of the book that is being traced throughout the book? And then now when you come to chapter 9, what subset of that topic is being traced out? Unfortunately, the Calvinists aren't doing that. Paul's theme in Romans, and my pastor spent 4 years of daily Bible classes exegeting Romans, and it was a major, had a major impact on my spiritual growth. It really helped me grow. Paul's big theme in Romans is to A, explain why it's faith, not works, and the resulting spiritual life that comes out of that. And B, to explain why the covenant shifts over from Israel to church. Now the Romans that he was talking to, and this is part of isagogics, were, how do you want to call it, priding themselves on how they were replacing Israel. And so he has to thread in and thread out both Israel's apostasy and constant reminders to them, hey, look, this is the mistake that they made, don't you do the same thing. So by the time he gets to Romans 9, he's full front and center on that topic. Okay, he started the topic in Romans 2 with the Jews and why, the Gentiles and all that. So now he's coming back in Romans 9 to explain why the Jews lost out, and he's basically going to tell you in Romans 9 that they lost out because they were all big on their works. And Paul loves wordplay and concept play and irony, and if you don't follow the threads, you're going to misinterpret what he says, and that's exactly what happens to Calvinists here. I'm going to let you read the chapter on your own. It's fine enough in translation. There are certain things that are mistranslated, but it's not really germane to our purpose right now. What is going to become germane is if you look at the context, even in your favorite translation, you're going to see that Paul begins by tracing that the selection and the election of sons isn't based on their works. All right? And that the Jews basically misinterpret God's selection as being based on their works, and that's why they lost out. So he has to, in order to show this, he goes all the way back to the progenitor of the Jews, which was Abraham. And then he traces it through Isaac, and then he shows how, look, there were no Jews, they were the beginning of the Jews. Jacob and Esau were twin brothers, so both Jewish. So it had nothing to do with their being Jewish, that Esau was rejected. All right? And of course that's true because Esau didn't believe, whereas Jacob did. You have that story, the contrast between the two brothers. Esau's running around being a hunter, and he just cares about the here and now, whereas Jacob is busy Jacob actually means quiet study. He was kind of a mama's boy, and really he got interested in the Word. as it was then revealed. So Jacob is always associating everything with God, and you never see that happen with Esau. So Esau isn't selected because Esau didn't believe. All right, and the book of Hebrews talks about that later. So that's what Paul is developing here as his theme. So when he says, and this is where we get into the immediate context of what the Calvinism misuse, it's Romans 9:13, and I'll sort of read it to you. I'm reading from the NIV just because that's easy. Just as it is written, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. Okay, that's in Malachi 1:2. I think it's Malachi 1:2. Yeah, 1:2 through 3. All right. So then Paul is developing that argument. He says, well, what shall we say? Is God unjust? In other words, to pick one and not the other. And then, in order to prove that God is not unjust, he quotes an Old Testament passage, which everybody knew, which is in Exodus 33 and 34, but there's more to it than that. The passage in particular is talking about the time when all the people of Israel rebelled against God. All right? And Moses, God basically gives Moses this offer. Listen, let me just wipe out all of Israel and I'll start over with you. And Moses says, no, please don't do that. You know, then all the Gentiles will not believe in you because they'll see you as being unjust. Sorry, that's somebody doing the landscaping in the background. Anyway, so he has this interesting way of replying to Moses by saying, I'll have mercy on whom I'll have mercy, and compassion on whom I'll have compassion. Well, who does he have mercy on and who does he have compassion on? The whole human race. I mean, if you don't follow the wordplay and you don't know the references that Paul is making, you don't understand why Paul picks this verse at this time. All right? And the reason why God phrases it this way is because his choices, that ties to Isaiah 55, my ways are not your ways, his choices never seem fair to us. And of course that's the whole point that Paul is making, is that he picks one and he doesn't pick another, and to us it seems arbitrary and wrong. And so just like with Pharaoh, you know, it's like, okay, you don't buy what I'm doing, you want to say I'm unjust, fine, I'm going to have mercy on whom I'll have mercy. You know, it's like, you don't get it, you don't see that I have mercy on you too, then fine, I don't, you know, just call me arbitrary then. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Sometimes those machines are too loud. I'm looking at the Greek now of Romans 9:16, and it's aron utu telontes ude tu trekontos ala tu my Greek sucks, eleontos teu. All right, what that's saying is not a matter of, that's where it's sort of mistranslated. It's not a matter of one willing or one's running. And the running is used, the treco was a way to run on a race course. You have this course and you think, I get to the goal and I win something. All right? It's not a matter of how much you will, and it's not a matter of how well you do, but it's a matter of God's mercy. Okay? Eleontos, eleao, sorry, is used to show mercy, but it really is often used for the Greek translation for the Hebrew, chesed, in the Old Testament, most notably in Psalm 23:6. Now, that's what's being said, and so Paul is referring back to chesed in the Old Testament. All right, God's mercy is for everybody. Your loving kindness lasts forever. Loving kindness is the usual English translation for chesed. And then Paul is evoking that by using the LXX translation for Elias, which here is using the the participle of eleo. Eleao, rather. Sorry, my pronunciation sucks. Okay, so when you get to Romans 9:16, you have already been introduced to a lot of Old Testament concepts, and that's how you should interpret the verse. And Paul goes on with the Old Testament concepts, because there he says, for Scripture says to Pharaoh, I raised you up, that I might display my power and be proclaimed. All right, now think about that. God is willing to have compassion on the whole human race, and our natural reaction should be, oh, but I don't deserve that.